Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Tomych, and today I'm at Merchant Payment Ecosystem. And we're discussing with various stakeholders situation and the current views, what is happening in the market. I'm pleased to introduce Geoffrey Barraclough, who is the founder and CEO of Business of Payments. And that's a really great newsletter that you definitely need to subscribe. So hello, Geoffrey. How are you?
It's great, though. Nice to be here.
Thank you. And there are a lot of things which are circulating this year on the event. That's a update from the agentic AI because last year I think it wasn't so loud as this year. There are a lot of changes with embedded payments and stablecoins. So what do you think in terms of the value for the merchants for this year? What we should focus, what is the real value and where it is?
Well, I probably highlight three things from the conference so far. So firstly is European payment sovereignty. I think Europe understands the need to have its own payment systems, its own destiny, and no longer to be reliant upon American systems. That's come through loud and clear. Clearly, Wero is part of that solution, the digital euro as well. But I'm also hearing a lot of corridor conversations about PSPs wanting to relocate a little bit further away from the Russian border.
Yeah.
So that's cannot deny that. Second thing, you touched on this about agentic commerce. We've heard a great deal about agentic commerce, possibly too much. I think there's a bit of fatigue on day two. We've heard the same story a number of times, but it's clearly coming. No one knows quite when, possibly soon, possibly not soon. There is a plethora of standards and protocols which are confusing the industry. They're certainly confusing merchants. And as we know, everybody uses confusion as an excuse not to do something. So I suspect we're going to see agentic commerce arriving a little bit later than maybe I thought it was when I walked into this conference, simply because it's so confusing. And if I were to highlight one more
Sure.
one more thing, and that's the merchant. So this conference is the merchant payment ecosystem. I think there are more merchants here than we've seen before. I think the merchants are professionalizing. So typically now we see merchants represented by a chief payment officer rather than somebody who works in the treasury department. So a chief payment officer, often they've hired teams from the payment industry. And they are looking to manage much more of the payment stack themselves. So be that subscriptions, tokenization, routing, orchestration, much more demand from merchants to run that themselves rather than outsource to a PSP. And that gets into this composable question about actually, do you want a monolithic payment stack or do you want to mix and match from a variety of in-house and external resources? So everything's getting more complicated.
But that's what the nature is, because when we are having more complex system, it's got more fragmented and we're kind of trying to overlap the control over the same components of the system. So I think having the overlap from the merchants and PSPs is quite understandable. Someone wants to take more control. Someone wants to provide this as a service to other merchants.
You have more merchants trading in more complex ways. So they're trading through more channels, frequently now also running a marketplace. They're trading in more countries and more continents.
Yeah.
Within each country, we're getting a plethora of different payment methods. Even in Europe, they're seeing growth of account-to-account payments.
Yeah.
But account-to-account, not just one sense.
Yeah.
It could be a Wero, it could be digital euro, it could be a bank transfer, a direct debit, it could be BISM, it could, whole raft of different things, all bringing their own different risks, liabilities, fraud, use cases, customer experience. So, yeah, more complex it gets, the happier these people are, because this is how they all make money, right? Yeah. In complexity, there is margin.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So then another question, what conscious thoughts or discussion that you hear on the conference you think is not right positioned, let's say like that?
So I think agentic commerce, by genuine machines buying from machines, is further away than you would realize if you were listening to Visa and MasterCard and Shopify and all the big guys talking from the stage. So yeah, I think that's probably the one thing where I came into this kind of believing the hype, and I'm less convinced coming away.
Okay, that's definitely true, because there are a lot of marketing buzz which is happening, and it's been years from years. Like if we try to recall 10 years back, the blockchain was a hype. Everything is blockchain. But right now, we hardly see the payments really made in blockchain. It's more stable coins and like at the layer between fiat and the real blockchain crypto. So let's see how the hype will turn out the next year.
Well, I mean, even stable coins in reality for the merchant payment ecosystem, so that is ordinary people buying things from retailers, they're not using stable coins in Europe. And you could also highlight a couple of years ago, everybody talks about metaverse. Continue display, right? You all right, metaverse. I mean, focus on what the merchants actually care about, which is the acceptance rate, the cost of the acceptance, the customer experience. How do you do a refund? I mean, the kind of get the basics right.
Yeah. Whatever is actually customer centric, because thinking about the new ways how to interact with the metaverse is good for the business, good for the marketing, but is it good for the end customer? Like, do we really need to wear the goggles to go and buy something? Because we have other ways and we would like to have it seamlessly as a customers.
Well, and people generally are not that keen on wearing goggles anyway. But yeah, we spent 2 years ago, that's what everybody talked about. You're right, people talked about crypto, very exciting, then they got less excited. But yeah, I mean, in Europe, people are still spending most of their time buying things with cards of various kinds.
And even sometimes with the cash.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, occasionally.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to discuss.